Welcome back to Amazingly Average, the show with advice for amazingly average authors and actors. My name is John, and I usually show up to work 20 minutes early, and then I sit in my car for another 10 minutes on Snapchat.
And give me a sign, hit me baby one more time.
This week's episode of Scream was titled Heavenly Creatures. I did a lot of research about this movie, and this movie is based on a 1954 murder case in New Zealand. I'm gonna give you the spark notes of this actual murder as opposed to the movie because they're actually very similar. On June 22nd, 1954, Honora Parker's body was found in Christchurch, New Zealand in Victoria Park. She was murdered by her daughter Pauline as well as Pauline's friend Juliet Hulmes. They murdered Honora by putting a brick into a stocking and beating her with it. Shortly after they murdered the mom, they ran back to this place where they ate lunch with mom just a little bit earlier, and then they told the police that she'd fallen down. The police found the murder weapon, and the girl's story was ripped apart really fast. In the trial that followed, there was a lot of speculation about the girls potentially being lesbians and having an obsessive relationship with one another. Pauline Parker suffered from osteomyelitis, which is inflammation of the bones and the bone marrow. Juliet Hulmes suffered from tuberculosis, which mostly has to do with the lungs. The two girls bonded over their illness, and they would sneak out at night. They would act out these stories, and their parents were worried that the two of them might have an obsessive sexual relationship, despite both being children. Homosexuality was considered a major mental illness. Julian's parents separated, and they decided that Juliet would be sent to live with relatives in South Africa, supposedly for her to recover from her disease, but also to separate the two girls. When Pauline found out from her mom, Honora, that she wasn't going to be allowed to accompany Juliet, the two of them made a plan to kill Honora because they saw her as the main obstacle for the two of them being together. They had the plan to either run away to New York City or to Hollywood and to make a movie about it. Wong. The stories that these two used to act out were apparently their own kind of religion because they rejected Christianity and they made up their own sort of religion and the moralities that apply to this religion. They worshipped their own saints in this place called the Fourth World, which was their own version of heaven, thus the title Heavenly Creatures. Because they were so young, they weren't eligible for the death penalty, so they got 5 years in jail, and they're both still alive to this day, and they both sort of lead regular lives. Pauline is now Roman Catholic, Juliet is now Mormon. Juliet is an investigative historical journalist, and Pauline ran a riding school for young children, which I assume means horse riding. They both expressed extreme regret about this thing they did when they were younger. They both legally changed their names. Juliet's name was now Anne Perry, and I'm not sure what Pauline changed her name to. The only difference between the movie and real life was how they got caught. In the movie, there was a detailed plan about the murder in Pauline's diary, and in real life, their story just got sussed out after the murder weapon was found. And now back to Scream. The episode starts in the Duval house. It's nighttime, Maggie and Emma are both asleep, and then this hooded figure appears in their house, stops by Maggie's room but doesn't go in, goes into Emma's room. They're sort of sifting through everything with a knife, and then they find Emma's dream journal. Emma hears the sound of a desk getting bumped or something, and she whirls around to face where the person is, but the person is gone, and so is her dream diary. She goes through the house, and then she finds the back door is open with this little chain necklace hanging on it with a little wooden carved heart. The police are called over, etc. Maggie's plan to see if Brandon James was actually still alive was her putting the note in the tree where the two of them used to exchange gifts, and so Maggie thinks that this plan might have worked. Now we're in the Wilcox household. Eli sees Kieran about to walk out of the house. He says, "It's 3 a.m. Where are you going?" And Kieran says, "To go see Emma." Mayor Maddox makes a public statement on television. "As a town, we didn't deserve Piper Shaw, and we don't deserve these new horrors." Kieran, Emma, Audrey, and Brooke visit Noah in the hospital, and Noah seems changed. They bring him scary movies and all the stuff that he used to like, but he wants nothing to do with it. Then he announces that he wants to stop doing the morgue. Brooke goes to that old hotel room where she used to go during season 1, and Gustavo is there watching the mayor's statement on television and drawing this really morbid drawing of the mayor. Brooke shows up, they kiss, and then the mayor says something about, "We all need to go home and be close to our families." And Gustavo says, "I'm pretty sure he's talking right to you." Per Noah's instructions, the remaining Lakewood 6 members go to his room to clean up the murder board and everything. And as they're cleaning it up, Emma finds this newspaper clipping that says, "Lakewood mourns Will Belmont." And when she looks closer at this picture on the front of the newspaper, she sees, at Will's funeral, Eli is in the background. Nobody knows why Eli is at Will's funeral. Audrey prays Noah another visit in the hospital and gives him this strip of photos that he and Zoe had taken in this photo booth in the carnival. More than anybody else, Audrey would be able to empathize with what Noah's going through when she had lost Rachel. Either Emma or Audrey get a text saying, "Your friend is good at cutting people off," I cut deeper. And there seems to be this group consensus between the remaining Lakewood people that they think Eli is very suspicious and Eli's the killer. And they're all very concerned about Eli this entire episode, but I just am not that worried about Eli. We jump back to the Wilcox household and we see Aunt Tina for the first time in several episodes. I think the last time we saw her was very briefly during the school lockdown scene. She's packing up all their stuff and Eli's like, "What are you doing?" And she's like, "We're moving." They're moving because the mayor told them to. She was gonna get paid a lot of money just to leave town. Eli's not having it. So Eli says something like, "We'll leave when I say we're leaving." Aunt Tina says, "What about the mayor?" Eli says, "Don't worry about the mayor. I'll take care of it." These people really make themselves look suspicious all the time. Also, I want to note here that I got Mrs. Lang's first name wrong all the time. I thought it was Karen, but apparently it's Kristen. I feel like somebody called her Karen at some point down the road, but I guess it's Kristen Lang. We jump to the Maddox household. The mayor is there expecting Brooke to show up eventually. He's wearing some very dad-looking clothing, some Hawaiian shirt. Suddenly, the radio booms in Brooke's room. He goes up to check it out, and Eli shows up in the house. He rummages through the mayor's stuff, and he finds some very incriminating stuff apparently in the desk drawer. By the time the mayor turns off the music and walks into his office, he sees a notepad on his desk turned over with these big words written on it, "You're screwed." Sheriff Acosta is talking to Kristen Lang in the hospital. He seems very accusatory of Kristen when he brings up the fact that she and Piper used to go to school together. Kristen claims that she might have played with Piper, but she honestly doesn't remember anything about Piper. We might be able to take her word for it, I'm not sure, but I think because she has been in the hospital for so long that she's probably not the killer. She has two things to say. The first is that Gustavo was a very helpful person, very intuitive about things. The reason why he seems so morbid is because he snuck a peek at some case file that his dad had one time and saw a picture of a dead body for the first time. It was the weirdest thing he ever saw and hard to process that that was what his dad did. And so he drew the picture, and that's how he processes things. He draws them. The other thing that she had to say was that she was doing a research case study about the surviving Lakewood people from the last year's tragedy, and that Emma was the one she was most worried about, that she had violent tendencies and psychotic episodes or something. If there is going to be a My Bloody Valentine twist to this Scream series, they are kind of hinting at it, because not only did Kristen Lang suggest that Emma is kind of losing it, they talked about how Emma and Audrey had dug up this box that Noah was buried in, and then one cop mentioned, how did the killer not leave any fingerprints on that box? And if Emma and Audrey were the only ones that touched the box, one of them would have to be the killer. All stuff to think about. As Noah's trying to make this final podcast for Zoe in the hospital, Gustavo shows up and tells Noah that he's being stupid, that he can't end it, and then he emails Noah this file and says that it'll be useful for Noah. When Noah opens the file, it's this graphic comic book of Noah's tango with the killer last week, which, you know, how would Gustavo know the details of that and what it looks like enough to draw it? Because he did a pretty accurate drawing. Because Audrey, Emma, and Kieran all suspect that Eli is probably involved with all this stuff, Kieran is sent back to his house to go sneak through Eli's stuff to try to find some evidence. When he gets home, Eli and Tina are talking, and Eli saying that basically the mayor has robbed a lot of people in town, including this really wealthy family. We all knew that the mayor was a sleazeball. Kieran FaceTimes Emma and Audrey, and he's rummaging through Eli's stuff. Underneath his pillow, he finds all of the letters between Audrey and Piper. So this is pretty incriminating. What I wasn't sold on was the fact that this was so cliche to find this stuff under Eli's pillow. It seems more likely that somebody would plant it there, in which case Kieran, eyes on you. Another thing that they found was all those pictures of Emma that Emma saw in the pig farm a couple weeks ago. Kieran, Emma, and Audrey are all talking about the evidence, and Kieran's like, we should turn it into the police. Emma's like, no, this stuff will make it look like Audrey is guilty here, and they need to get some more evidence. And I forget what Audrey says, but she's kind of agreeing with Emma that they really need to put the stuff back, and they're worried about Eli, that if Eli notices this stuff is missing, that he'll go wild and he'll, like, attack Kieran. So they send Kieran to put the stuff back in his house. When Kieran puts all this stuff back, Eli sees him doing it. Brooke returns home and passively has a conversation with her dad. He says he misses her, and she says, you should. The mayor gets a text message. Those are some interesting papers in your office, Mr. Mayor. We should talk before I make them public. Something along those lines. Noah is about to upload his episode of The Morgue. This file opens up and there's like a skull and crossbones and it's like a virus. He says that he's been remotely hacked. This video uploads to The Morgue and it's this video confession spliced together audio of Emma and Audrey and everything incriminating that the two of them have said, and it makes them both look like they're Lakewood murderers. Emma and Audrey have went off on their own to go to the pig farm to try to find some more evidence. Maggie finds out that the two of them might have been going this way and sends the police. The mayor shows up at the pig farm. He's having this text message conversation where he's supposed to meet the person who's blackmailing him. The person isn't there. The mayor keeps sending text messages because he's hearing their ringers going off. He follows it for a while, finds the phone on the stool. Then he gets a picture of the Brandon James mask person holding a pitchfork, which is red flags. You should get out of that barn, mayor. It was so awesome and grisly. The killer runs up, impales the mayor with a pitchfork. The pitchfork has gone through the other side of him and then disappears. Emma and Audrey find that secret room in Brandon James's house that Sheriff Acosta had found a few episodes ago. They go out to the barn. They find the mayor. The mayor pulls the pitchfork out of him. I'm gonna stop before I continue this any further. Here's some basic first aid for anybody. If you get stabbed with a knife, impaled with any kind of object anywhere, if it's your eye, your chest, your arm, something, don't take it out. Stop the bleeding. Go get a medical professional to help you if you can. Have them take it out. The most important thing is to stop the bleeding. Had it gone through a heart or a lung or something, there's a chance that he would be able to get to the hospital in time to get operated on if he left it in. So please don't take it out. That's why I was so mad at Brooke in season 1 when she ripped that knife out of Jake's chest in the bowling alley, because that would have made him bleed out. So now the two of them have blood on their hands. Emma has a pitchfork in her hand and Audrey has this crowbar. The police show up at the barn. They say drop the weapons, and the two of them are just standing there with bloody hands, looking suspicious as hell. They get escorted into the back of a police car. Sheriff Acosta tells Maggie that as a friend, she should be getting Emma a lawyer. And then in the preview for next week's episode, we see that the police car has crashed and Emma and Audrey are on foot. A couple things I need to mention real quick. After the first 7 minutes of the season were previewed on Facebook and followed up by a Q&A with Bex Taylor Klaus and John Carna, who are Audrey and Noah, the two of them said that there were going to be 14 episodes this season. They didn't finish film production until early July, from my understanding. In season 1, I think they made it 4 or 5 episodes in before Scream was renewed for a second season. This season has been cut down to 12 episodes, so the story, which should have lasted another 2.5 hours, now has to be squished into about another 45 minutes next week. So there are a lot of things that they never talk about, whatever this horrible thing is that Zoe did, that her mom pulled her out of school and made her go to therapy, amongst other things that they don't really talk about much more. There are all these questions that aren't unanswered. I doubt they're all going to be answered. I think they had to rush production at the end. They're doing a pretty good job for like the time constraints and everything, but I'm fairly certain that next week's Scream is going to be the last Scream episode ever. I don't think there's going to be a season 3. I'm sad because I really like the show, but I don't think that they're going to have a 3rd season. So with all that out there, we're going to move on to the killer prediction. I'm going to Final Jeopardy lock in my answer and say that the killer is Kieran Wilcox. Besides everything I've said about him in the past couple recaps, he has demonstrated a lot of violent tendencies this season. He just gets mad whenever we see him. We're very quiet or very reclusive. He says that he wanted to bash in Eli's face this episode. He has punched Eli in the face in the carnival episode. He said that his cousin always tried to get what he wanted from him, which could be potential paranoia. And my thought this episode was that when Emma and Audrey both told him that they can't turn in that evidence to the police, he kind of seemed shaken and confused. I think his plan sort of foiled. I think ultimately he might have lost touch with reality and he's obsessive to the point where he wants Emma totally to himself, thus he might have murdered all of the people around her. There's stuff about Kieran's past that we don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if it was Gustavo, but I don't think that there's as much of a chance of it being him as there is of it being Kieran. It would be kind of a dramatic reveal if Emma was the killer, the series finale. There you have it. 1 week left into the finale. I think I'm gonna actually do a live reaction to the episode and cut it together. I know reaction videos are cliche and really overdone on YouTube, but for the Scream potentially series finale, I think that it's the right thing to do. There you have it. That's what I have for you this week, and I will see you next week.